This book has just written its own reality and it is freaking me out. Hello and welcome back to the Looking Glass World. My name is Aradhana Mathews and the book that I am talking about is Yellowface, which has been making the rounds on bookstagram, and I can totally see why. But before we get into it, make sure you subscribe if you enjoy all content related to books and storytelling. And with that, if you're ready, let's go. So Yellowface is essentially a satire about the publishing industry as a whole, especially when it comes to which books become and authors become bestsellers and cultural icons, and whether there is any science to this or it's all just arbitrary. Does someone become a success because of the quality of their work or because the publishing industry just decides that they are going to be the next face of culture and publishing? So the story begins, so we have two key characters here. One is June Hayward, who later becomes Juniper Song, and the other one is a woman called Athena Liu. So we start off with June and Athena together, and the very first sentence says, "The night I watch Athena Liu die, we're celebrating her TV deal with Netflix." Woof! Quite a first sentence there. So the context here is Athena Liu is a very successful author. She's the same age as June, but her books get celebrated. She's all over the place, like photo shoots, press, etc., etc., and most recently a Netflix deal. While June is somebody who went to the same college, followed very similar career choices, but has achieved nothing. Like, she's published a couple of things, but really not made that much of an impact. And a lot of her narrative is fueled by this like jealous rage almost. She asks constantly why Athena Liu is successful. Yes, her writing is good, but is it so good that she deserves all of this? Or is it because of the diversity quotient that Athena has become so famous while June Hayward, a white woman, has not? And that's sort of the backstory that leads us to the scenario where Athena Liu is dying. Why is she dying? She is choking to death when eating something in celebration of this deal with Netflix. So she chokes to death in her apartment, and the only person there is June Hayward. And of course, Hayward, this is a shock, and she panics and she calls for help and all of that, but Athena's dead. Now, June, before leaving, finds a manuscript written by Athena, but that's not published, and it's called The Last Front. She takes a glimpse at it and she says, wow, this is really good writing. This is going to become a hit. And then she has to face a decision. Does she just leave it or does she take it? And she chooses to take it and publish it under her name. The book is about Chinese laborers in World War I and becomes an instant success. June now suddenly has all this attention on her. She has publicists, she has people coming managing her social media presence, she has people promoting the book and telling her what to do. And this team comes and tells her to change her name, change the way she writes her name to Juniper Song. Song can be, although she's white, Song can sound a little bit more ethnically ambiguous and therefore fit strategically into the plot of this book that she has written. So her fame goes higher and higher and higher, but then eventually the truth starts to trickle in, and somebody spreads a rumor that this is not an original manuscript, and the dreaded word plagiarism starts to be used. And then we see the other side of things and how social media can not only like lift you up in a way you never thought before, but it can also tear you down. She becomes the target of mass bullying, and now she has to decide what she values more, her sanity or all the success that she has gotten from a book that wasn't entirely hers. And all the while, the ghost of Athena Liu continues to haunt her. So that's the premise and the broad storyline of this book. But what spooked me out was how strangely it was mirroring reality. So there are two key things that struck me as strange when I started to read this book. The first is this whole Juniper Song angle and the ethnically ambiguous name. Look at the author's name, Rebecca Kwang. Doesn't that sound eerily close in structure? I mean, that was the number one thing that creeped me out. The second thing that creeped me out was the fact that Yellowface in reality is very different from the other books that Rebecca Kwang has written, even in terms of like the style of writing, the way she narrates the story, the nuances in the book. It's very different. This is written in a very like casual narrative style where the narrator is Juniper Song and she says things like, no, seriously, and like she talks like any other normal person would. while narrating the story, but it's very different from her other books. And in the book, Juniper Song gets all the success, and the book that she publishes is drastically different from any other book that she has written. So there's another strange mirroring for you. But then the mirroring goes to another level, and that's what really got me and got me to think that I should make a video about this, because the entire book is a scathing satire on the publishing industry, like how arbitrary all of this is. And she's constantly asking questions and looking at Athena's successes because of her Asian heritage. What is going on back here? Why is she so popular? It seems like nobody has any logic to this, and they've just decided she's pretty, she writes well, she's ethnically diverse, so she's going to become a best-selling author and a cultural icon. But why can't that be me? And me here is Juniper Song. So she's, anytime she talks about this kind of like success and fame and all, there's a heavy undertone of sarcasm here, just brutally tearing it apart. But then what happens? Yellowface becomes a bestseller, and the author gets all of that attention that she was critiquing within the book itself. And in a lot of ways, the author's journey mirrors both that of Juniper Song and Athena Liu, the writer who became so famous in the first place for her distinctive identity and how that translated through her writing. So it's freaky. But I mean, honestly, like, I just felt like sharing that because it spooked me. But I love this book, even though one of my pet peeves is when the narration is done in like casual language. Part of the fun for me is seeing the world through an author's eyes, which is why I love how Chitra Banerjee Divakarni writes, because it's really her lens that you see the world through, and it's so beautifully done. Whereas if somebody talks like my friends and I when we're on a girl's day, like, I don't know, for me it doesn't have the same impact. But that being said, I understand why the author made the choice to do that. It makes complete sense to this book. And I also love how The Guardian calls it a publishing thriller, because those are two words you don't typically associate together. You would never think a thriller would focus around the publishing industry, but here we are. It also goes deeper. You still have much deeper conversations about race primarily, and deconstructing that, because here you have a white woman, Juniper Song, who's written about Chinese laborers in World War I. And she gets a lot of critique on the internet saying, this woman doesn't know what she's talking about, this is like appropriation, whatever, this and that, all kinds of your standard words are thrown at her. Meanwhile, Athena Liu, who I think is Chinese, writes a book about Korean history and no one says anything. So obviously there's some hypocrisy, there are double standards. Who gets to tell these stories at the end of the day? Why do you begrudge a white person for telling these stories if they've done it in a way that is actually research-led and not through the lens of colonialism, versus somebody who's not even there, who may not even be part of this community, but is just not white, therefore has a right to tell the story? I don't know where this stands, but the thing is, nobody else does either. And this book goes into how, despite being so ill-informed and not having enough information to make a real, sound, educated judgment, everybody's on the internet with their own opinions and acting like that is the one and only right way. And it happens right now today, where so many people have half knowledge or barely any knowledge. That's enough for them to go and broadcast their opinion. But the thing is, they might be idiots talking about whatever the hell, but what they say has consequences. And this book is really like shows this mirror to how we've become as like judgment of the people through social media, and how dangerous and just sad that can be when people who don't have enough information decide to air our opinions, and what the domino effect of that can be. So lots going on in this book, but that's honestly all I wanted to say. I really want everybody to read this because I want to know what you think. It's a great book, a wonderful read. I'm definitely reading more by this author, and I want to see if the mirroring goes even deeper in terms of her writing and the story here. But that's it, honestly. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is my quick take on this book. Let me know if you want to see more of this. But if you want to read short stories and interesting articles, head to my website at aradhanamatthews.com, and make sure to follow me on Instagram at The Looking Glass World for more book recommendations and other fun content. But in the meantime, make sure you like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.